Good night, Central, and welcome to the NTA's Connect Caravan Central meeting. Before we start today's proceeding, I would like to invite this young man to the stage, Mr. Nikolai. We will start off by starting with the national anthem. So can I ask everyone to stand? Let's stand for the national anthem. He's going to play music or this one? I would like to ask you guys to remain standing while I invite Ms. Kissoon to the stage to say our opening prayer.
Good evening, everyone. In whichever way you are comfortable, please join us in prayer. We thank you, Lord, for bringing us all safely here this evening as a community. Allow us to be able to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community. We ask that you deliver your blessings and comfort to all those who have been affected by the recent rains and flooding. Fill their hearts with hope in this trying time and with the certainty that we are all resilient beings able to rise above the most difficult of situations with your grace and guidance, for every moment is as you have granted it. We ask you, Lord, to bless this gathering tonight and enlighten us with the ability to listen as well as to converse. Allow us to listen to each other with open and humble hearts. As prospective leaders, give us the strength to be humble, soft-hearted, and willing to listen to every voice. We thank you, Father, for creating each of us with unique gifts and for gifting some with leadership abilities to help guide our country onto the most appropriate path into the future. For everyone here this evening, refresh our spirits and encourage us to all rebuild our nation. Help us to readily give grace and to also receive it. Protect our families from sickness, bitterness, and discouragement, and may we all be encouraged by the truth that your love is always stronger than hate. Amen, Amen, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
You may take your seats. Today, our first meeting in Chaguanas, and I'm sure it's not going to be a last. We had to make a decision a while back, a few minutes ago, whether or not we want to stay on with the meeting or cancel. And of course, we are here today. And I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up this evening, although given the circumstances that have taken place within our beloved country over the last weekend, over the last few days. A lot of people right now are underwater. Today I visited the Bamboo too, and I saw the distress that the people are experiencing at this point. And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who would like to be here today. A few minutes ago, our General Secretary came to me and he told me that there have been a very bad accident on the highway presently, and there are people who died in the accident that are currently on the streets, well, on the road of the highway. So we definitely, our country right now is bleeding, and we definitely need prayers as we thank Nikolai for the wonderful anthem. You have a beautiful voice. I know Nikolai since he was about 5 years old. And I want to thank Ms. Simone Kassoon for the beautiful prayer that she gave. So as we move forward, I would like to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is a medical doctor with over 10 years experience in the surgical field. He is an entrepreneur, a businessman, and a sport enthusiast with an interest in community service and charitable events. He is responsible for recruiting of youths into the membership of the party, cultivating support for the youth of the party, creating awareness about the problems facing the youths, including falling educational standards and widespread unemployment, promoting policies that will expose the full potential of the youths, including policies to improve the quality of education and catering for the activities and interests of the young members. He is a member of the national government's team. I know there's a lot, but his portfolio is big. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you to the podium the Director of the Youth Progression of the National Transformation Alliance. Please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Dr. Kevin Saran.
I said these are some serious times. All I can see around us is just violence and crime. Full time for us to centralize, socialize, and realize. So let the sunshine throughout every day. Let the moon shine.
The future of our nation lies in the school bags of our children. This is a quote by Dr. Eric Williams, former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Kevin Saran, and I am the Director of Youth Progression at the National Transformation Alliance. I was asked to share with you all today some of the issues that are plaguing the youths of Trinidad and Tobago, and some of the ideas on how we plan to deal with this. One of the questions I often get asked, and when people first see me, is what does the National Transformation Alliance plan to do differently? Now, this is something I'm sure a question that have been on your minds. This is why you all are here today. You all would like to hear what the National Transformation Alliance plan to do differently. Well, I want to waste no time. I want to dive straight into the meat of the matter. The first topic I want to touch on is actually the education system in Trinidad and Tobago. In Trinidad and Tobago, we have what I like to term a very educated but jobless society. Let me repeat that. We have in Trinidad and Tobago a very educated but jobless society. How many of you all here in the audience, just a quick show of hands, have children that are either pursuing either secondary school education, primary school education, even tertiary school education? Quite a lot, right? Now, I want you to take you back. Imagine 20 years back, where when you passed common entrance, back then they had common entrance, 20 years back, when you passed your common entrance exam, you could have secured a job with just passing your common entrance exam. 15 years ago, you could have gotten by with just some O-levels, whether you had 3 O-levels, 5 O-levels, that was enough to get you by. 10 years ago, you needed A-levels, and that would have gotten you by. 5 years ago, you now need a degree to stand out from the rest of people. Today, we are at a turning point in our education system, where right now you must have at least 2 degrees before an employee even looks at your son or daughter. I'm sure you all are quite aware of the cost of a degree. It costs almost about $30,000 a year to achieve a degree. And if you have 2 children, 3 children, the cost adds up, and it's quite a lot, right? The solution to me is actually a very simple one, and maybe it's a bit too simple for somebody in authority to take it seriously. Like any successful business model, you have a demand and you have a supply. No one wants to produce a product and not have somebody buy it from you. And this is the current situation that we have in Trinidad and Tobago with our jobs. We are producing really good tertiary level candidates, and they're coming out without jobs. I'm sure everybody has some relative that they know that has a degree and they have no jobs. The situation is an ever-changing one. And a lot of people might say, let's just open up some vocational schools. Let's just do, close down some institutions and let's open up some plumbing centers, electrical centers, whatever it may be. I want to tell you that that is simply a temporary fix. And let me go on to explain by giving you an example. If you know that Trinidad and Tobago needs a certain amount of plumbers, let's say they need 1,000 plumbers every year, and you continue to do this for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, you're going to have 5,000 plumbers. But what will happen when that job as a plumber becomes saturated? The people who are in the 6,000, 7,000 range, they're not going to have jobs. And that is currently the situation that we have here in Trinidad and Tobago. So you might ask, what does the NTA plan to do fix this? One of the ideas that I have proposed so far is actually what I would like to term a continuous population job census. This means that it's an ongoing survey between the business sector, and the business sector is actually responsible for your demand, and also that of the academic institutions, which is responsible for your supply. So only if there's a demand, then you supply. Ladies and gentlemen, it simply means that if your child has already started a career in a particular field, that there will be a job waiting for them at the end of this, and not the other way around. The COVID pandemic has forced Trinidad and Tobago to level up with our first world counterparts. The digital classroom finally made its way to our shores, out of pure necessity. But I found personally that this was greeted with somewhat of a reluctant leadership. They quoted some figures of the last SEA exam about 2 years ago. They said in 2020, they looked at how many people passed half the SEA, achieved the 50% pass mark. They said 63% of the candidates who wrote that SEA exam in 2020 achieved the 50% pass mark. 53% in 2021. And 37% in 2022. It means that most of the people who write SCA basically failed, right? And that is clearly a problem that we're having. With any new technology, it is expected that there will be some sort of a transition period. And one must go through that, and you must have to conquer the obstacles that you have in your way. After a mere 2 years of online teaching, the online portals in Trinidad and Tobago are completely closed. We have gone back and away from online teaching, back to blackboard and chalk and duster. The citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm sure you all could speak here, that we have already gone through the hardship of purchasing the laptops, getting the Wi-Fi. Some of the parents may not even know how to use a computer. They went and learned how to use a computer just so that they could show their children how to go about logging in to get their classroom information. Let me put this into perspective of how far back of a nation that we are right now. The University of Phoenix in the United States first started teaching online classes 33 years ago. This is 1989 I'm talking about. That's how far back we are. And we have taken a step merely after 2 years. A step back, that is. Thousands of students, parents, teachers, they come into work daily. This leads to a build-up in traffic. It's almost like you're doing a job before you reach to work, a job when you're at work, and a job when you're coming back from work, right? This coupled with the rise in fuel prices, the overcrowding in schools, the COVID pandemic, you see where I'm going with this. It's almost like we're aiming to sabotage ourselves. Are we aiming to break the record of being a nation that is furthest behind? I sincerely hope that is not the case. There have been many surprises over these last couple of years in Trinidad and Tobago, but this one that I'm about to tell you, this one takes it up. The last SEA exam they had 37% of people pass this exam. it was proposed that they are going to allow everybody into Form 1 and Form 2. And that's fine. But now they're proposing that at the beginning of Form 2, that they want to have something called a lower proficiency exam. Now, if you could imagine, at the beginning of Form 2, you have this exam to tell you that you're okay to come out from SCA. The psychological effect of this on a child in the formative years will encourage that child to believe that they have failed at life and to create a mental challenge. And we are not going to see the results of that right now. This is something that we'll see the results of maybe 15, 20 years from now. The solution for that would have been a very simple one, to just accept the things that we cannot change and to work towards improving the future. In trying too hard to appear that they were doing something to fix the problem and to fix the situation, they have committed the ultimate sin, where improper perfection is actually the enemy of good. Now, I know my time here is limited, but I want to touch on one more topic before I close off. Trinidad and Tobago is not a sporting nation. I think we could all agree on that, and for many reasons, and it's not the fault of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. We have opted merely to celebrate the achievements of individuals who accomplish a medal. When we see them on TV, we claim them, that's ours. Anybody who gets international recognition, yeah, them is Trini, and that's how we go. In every other part of the world, sports is actually seen as a career. In Trinidad and Tobago, sports is seen as something you do after school, and that clearly is a problem that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. I remember about 4 years ago, I had an encounter with an athlete. I went to a football game, and he told me that he got $50 for every game that he played for his club. And he did an 8 to 4. He was a mason, a joiner, electrician. Anything you would give him, he would do. He's just looking to make ends meet. And then he would go training from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Imagine these athletes are now competing with world-class athletes whose only job is just to do sport. And still we are performing. Imagine what we could do if we support our athletes in Trinidad and Tobago. Now this one's another personal one. Of the 5 stadiums in Trinidad and Tobago, the 5 major ones, and I'll call them out, the Atabolan Stadium, the National Aquatic Center, the Velodrome, the Hazy Crawford Stadium, and the Larry Gomes Stadium. Can you believe, it is my personal experience I'm telling you here, can you believe that these institutions are $1 million and collectively are $1 billion institutions that are not open to the public of Trinidad and Tobago? I have tried to go to exercise at the Atabolan Stadium and it's simply not open to the public. They are operating as though these institutions belong to them. These institutions, these $1 billion institutions, were paid for with your money, Trinidad and Tobago. And I find that shouldn't be the case. Imagine trying to craft your child and tell them, you know, sport is the way to go and you could become a good athlete, but you don't have these facilities open for them to get the experience. It's almost like you go for a job interview and it's your first job, you've never had any experience, and then they are simply telling you that you must have experience to get the job, but nobody's giving you experience. That is what we are facing here, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to leave you all with a very powerful message on closing, and I want you all to think about this on your drive home. All right? We cannot continue to use the same building blocks of yesterday and expect a different outcome tomorrow. All right? I want to repeat that one more time before I close off. We cannot continue to use the same building blocks of yesterday and expect a different outcome tomorrow. Guys, trust us. Trust me when I say better days are coming. Believe. Thank you.
But I don't really believe in the falling things at all. Cause life continues.
What a wonderful and very informative speech. So let's go back a bit. So my name is Insaf Inaitullah. I did not introduce myself a little while ago. And I'm the coordinator East for the National Transformation Alliance. And tonight I am standing here as the host for tonight's program. I'm also a businessman. I have my own architectural and structural firm. And I am here with this party to help build back a nation that we once knew as Trinidad and Tobago. So I hope that you guys are with us. You know, Dr. Saran had mentioned something there, and it took me back to this weekend itself, where he talked about the online classes, and just imagine, we went 2 years of pandemic, 2 years of online classes, and we have a country that, I'm just calling a figure on the top of my head, I will say probably 1/3 underwater, and the ministry still opened school at the big Monday, well not Monday, but Tuesday. Why it is, we can, what is keeping us from adapting the fact that if we have a national disaster, we could go straight out into online classes immediately without any effect. The children was given a laptop at a point in time. What is this thing being used for? Why was that program stopped? And we could go on. We talk about trade, we talk about plumbing, we talk about woodworking. Children of this country right now is using Trinidad and Tobago as a stepping stone. It's no longer a future for them. If you listen to a youth growing up, their dreams is to go to Canada, and their dream is to go to America and to go to Australia. We need to stop that, and we need to show the youths of Trinidad and Tobago that this is their country. They have to own it, they have to win it, and they're going to get it back. And under the NTA, we plan to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring our next speaker to the stage. Up next is an environmental manager professional with expertise in chemicals and waste management, site assessment and remediation studies, and environmental assessment studies for major infrastructure development projects in Trinidad and Tobago for the past 35 years. He is responsible for the development and ratification of community-based party organs, empowering the participation of people with common interests to address matters of public concerns and promote the renewal agenda. He is also a member of the national governance team of the NTA. Coming to address you is the Director, Empowerment Committees of the National Transformation Alliance. Put your hand together, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome Dr. Ahmad Khan.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for those words of introduction. Chairman of today's Community Caravan meeting, Mr. Insaf Inatola, political leader of the National Transformation Alliance, Mr. Gary Griffith, and in the interest of time, I'll just say all other protocols observed. Very good night to all. You have to forgive me for 1 minute because I'm age challenged, and in order to read, I have to take off my spectacles. It's a reverse order. So as the chairman indicated, I'm an environmental management and sustainable development professional, and I have been that for the last 38 years. But tonight I want to address the dramatic and debilitating national disaster that has befallen all of us these past few days. And I am speaking specifically to the widespread flooding, the landslides and road destruction, the shutdown of the Wassa water supply, the loss of agricultural crops and livestock, damage to businesses, the other economic and the social activities of our people that we witnessed over the past few days. Our prayers indeed go out to those tens of thousands of our fellow citizens who are marooned in their homes this evening, who are isolated from the rest of our country, and who are now in the throes of picking up the pieces of their lives as the floodwaters recede. The question now is, what do we do going forward? And I respectfully submit that we cannot do like what the Prime Minister and his ministers of Works and Transport, Rural Development and Local Government, and Public Utilities suggest, and that is to wait for the dry season to deal with the challenges that are facing us this Christmas season. If those PNM politicians had not realized it yet, we no longer have clearly defined dry and wet seasons. climate change has seen to that. So we need to see the roads and the bridges repaired and the watercourses cleared as soon as possible, not next year, February. It's Christmas time in our country, and what a misnomer that is today, as instead of love, caring, sharing, giving and compassion, we see a caring PNM government, hardened in their stance to respond only to a favored few and not all. Thank goodness that Trinidad and Tobago is a neighborly and compassionate people, and our heartfelt thanks go out to all those citizens and communities who are today lending a helping hand to others who are stranded and flooded out. Contrary to Minister Sinanan's pronouncement that we are witnessing unprecedented weather events, we all know that Trinidad and Tobago gets severe weather events every year without fail. We all know that in October and November, Trinidad and Tobago does flood, and yeah. Rohan Boy, if you recall, in 2010, Auntie Kamla put on her boots and with her cabinet colleagues went out to deal with flood. In 2014, she did it again because it was flood again. And in 2018, all yourself PNM people call out soldiers, Coast Guard, police, fire, and all manner of persons to deal with flood in Greenville. This year, Greenville was spared flooding because the PNM well fixed them up nice after 2018. But Bamboo and Springvale, Woodlands and Tabaquite, Davie and Penal, Central and Grandie, and Mafeking and Tobago flood out big time. But where are the Army, Coast Guard, police, and fire now? It looks like this rounds is every man, Jack, and Jenny for themselves. What really causes this extent of flooding? Is it because the climate is changing so fast that the weather events are unpredictable and so severe that we can't handle it anymore? Is it because, coincidentally, every time we have a severe weather event, it's high tide? If that is so, then what do we do about it? The answer is that we can't do anything about climate change, which is a global challenge. But we can and must mitigate and adapt to it. Based on Minister Sinanan's and his ministerial colleagues' nonsensical utterances on the subject these past few days, it's obvious that this would require smarter people to be in government, who understand what mitigation and management and adaptation means, since they just don't get it. Sinanan and his colleagues need to understand that they must stop reinventing the wheel and stop commissioning studies at taxpayers' expense for another national drainage plan for Trinidad and Tobago when so many have been done already. Mr. Sinanan's pronouncement yesterday that the government is going to do more studies leaves one to wonder who is benefiting financially from these new studies. Instead, they need to pull out the volumes of studies and reports commissioned by successive governments from the PNM to the NAR to the UNC to the PNM to the PP and back to the PNM again, and paid for by taxpayers since the mid-1980s. And these studies identified what the problems are and how to solve them, and they need to dust them off. This is to happen not just for the Caroni River Basin, as Minister Sinanan pronounced yesterday, but the Kumoto, St. Joseph, Arima, Santa Cruz, Caparo, Hondo, Sepero, Barakpo, Debe, Urupuch, and the river basins as well. But more importantly, and this is where the PNM fails miserably, we need to implement the recommendations made in these past studies, starting with the one done by Thames Water International in the mid-1980s, and ending with the one done by Royal Huskilling a few years ago, whose recommendations like installing and maintaining a system of retention, ponds, and detention dams, widening and deepening our primary and secondary rivers, repairing, shoring up, and increasing the heights of the levees along the main rivers, and relocating residential communities out of critical flood-prone areas makes sense to even the average primary school child. The PNM's standard excuses of funding, land acquisition challenges, and needing more technical studies ring hollow and can bring no comfort to the hundreds of thousands of our citizens struggling with picking up the pieces in the days ahead. Indeed, all it does is convince us as a people that we need to get rid of this caring government once and for all. As we continue to witness the tremendous amount of flooding in our country and the disastrous effects that this has on the population and on the economy, the NTA believes that we can and must do better. We can start by doing simple things. We need to stop clearing our forests, which are watersheds, to make way for housing and roads to nowhere. We need to stop illegal construction along our waterways and coastlines and our riverbanks. We need to stop quarrying every hillside and valley for materials. We need to stop throwing single-use plastic bottles, old appliances, tires, derelict vehicles, and other garbage into our watercourses so that they can run free when rain falls. If you remember your secondary school geography, every drain leads to a brook, every brook leads to a stream that flows into a river that flows into the sea. Yes? Yeah. We need to just stop and think about how we develop our country while protecting what is left of the ecological systems like forests, grasslands, and wetlands that are there to protect us from nature's wrath. The NTA is promising a model for governance for Trinidad and Tobago called the LAMP model, L-A-M-M-P. To start the ball rolling, the NTA will develop an integrated sustainable development policy, strategy, and action plan to carry us out of this quagmire and morass of stupidity that the PNM and successive governments have put us in. Consequently, as it pertains to solving the annual flooding challenges, an NTA government will provide sound and capable leadership to implement its action plans. The NTA will devolve responsibility for the execution of the mitigation, management, and adaptation plans for flooding to state agencies that are best suited to these tasks, but the NTA will ensure there is accountability on the part of these state agencies and the contractors that they hire. The NTA will manage all of the financial, infrastructural, and human resources required to get the job done on time and within budget, and every time, each and every time. And the NTA government will measure and monitor the performance of all who are acting on behalf of the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago. You with me? L-A-M-M-P. 5 steps. So I know my time is running short, but I'd like to leave you with these closing words. We at the NTA are an alliance of like-minded people who have strong patriotic values and a common commitment to a future benefiting all of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We are a movement that values inclusivity of people in the governance process, and we believe that this participatory approach to government, the LAMP model, will take Trinidad and Tobago into the next prosperous, developed country. This is our pledge to you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, so join us and believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. Since I've known Dr. Khan, every time I hear him speak or I talk to him on the phone or via text, I always learn something new. He's a very intelligent man. And I should have taken you today with me in Bamboo number 2. Today, when I visited Bamboo number 2, they didn't run me out. They accepted me. And it's sad to see what is taking place there because there were no army, there was no Coast Guard, there was no fire, there was no one. It's these people, the residents of Bamboo was actually trying to make things better, improvement in their own area. Matter of fact, Inshan Ishmael, who ran the guy, asked me to do something. So I didn't want to get around, so I did what he asked. And he asked me to go and collect some shovels for him by a local hardware. And imagine, these residents were going to take those shovels to go down to the bank to clear a way for the water to run out because they have no pump. And there's no other way for the water to run out in that area. Matter of fact, there were flat houses that are close to the rivers that were up to the top of the windowsill, or some of them was up to the ring beam. I heard one person saying that how she just came from the grocery and there were meat floating in her house because the water picked up the whole fridge and empty it. And these people are not getting help whatsoever. Talking about that, the NTA is on a drive to help the flood victims, and we are asking for those who would like to donate towards this drive. You can contact our office at 227-7084, and we could also, if you want to drop off any cleaning supplies, any food supplies, and we will try to get it to the people who need it right now. So please make every effort to try help this drive. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, who is not here with us today because of some personal reasons, that is Nikolai Edwards. He's a deputy political leader. So I just moving on to the other speaker here. So last night, while I was putting my program together, I get a call from our coordinator, and he tell me, he say, when you're introducing me, make sure and be detailed and come real good. So let me go real good. Our next speaker is a retired career military officer with over 27 years military and marine experience. He is specialized in joint and inter-agent operation with a focus in terrorism, drug interdiction, border control, and piracy. A former UN officer of drugs and crime consultant and a maritime mentor for the region of the East African in Somalia, impelling their Coast Guard to counter piracy within their region. He is a master mariner and holds a bachelor's in nautical science and a master's in port and operation management, and is very fluent in Spanish. So hopefully you can talk some Spanish for here. He is married with 2 children and he lives with 5 dogs. I hope that is detailed enough for you, sir. The coordinator central for the national governance, he's also the member of the national governance team with the responsibility of developing and maintaining relationships with community residents and organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, I call upon your coordinator central, Commander Norman Dindial.
Days are coming, change your ways. For this moment, pass you by and remain sane. Better days are coming, change your ways. For this moment, pass you by and remain sane. What we gonna do now? There's no one else.
Political leader of the National Transformation Alliance, Captain Gary Griffith, members of the National Governance Team, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And welcome to the National Transformation Alliance first public meeting here in the borough of Chaguanas. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I am both humbled and honored to be here. Here in central Trinidad, here the place of my birth, and here the place of my residence. Your presence here tonight, despite the floods, traffic, landslides, is a sign that you believe. Indeed, we all believe that great transformation of this nation, and indeed our communities here in central Trinidad, is close at hand. And it is a fact, significant and expeditious change is not only imminent, but absolutely necessary. We know that this is no ordinary time for our people. We have all emerged from a viral pandemic into another more dangerous pandemic. A pandemic of violent crime. A pandemic of economic mismanagement. A pandemic of legitimized corruption and moral bankruptcy. A pandemic of never-ending floods and structural decay. Each of us comes here with our own problems and priorities, desperate for change, knowing that this country is on the brink of collapse under this present administration. All, however, is not lost. I assure you that the National Transformation Alliance is our beacon of hope, established with robust pillars that will serve the people of this great nation. Leadership, accountability, management, and measurement of performance. This LAMP, an acronym from the first of each of the principles previously mentioned, will dispel the present darkness enveloping our nation and our daily lives. What do I mean by this? Well, please allow me to explain. Let us remember that any government's first and foremost and most sacred responsibility is the protection of its citizens. However, here in central Trinidad and throughout the country, the challenges are many. From daily murders, home invasions, burglaries, unemployment, flooding, and poor living conditions among the endless threats and pains that leave us anxious and afraid of facing our daily lives, desperate for safety and security, just to be able to enjoy our hard-earned belongings. And this has become blatantly obvious, especially within the last 5 years. We have been faced with rising crime, closure of businesses, increased unemployment, declining social conditions, and an overall economic downturn and display of growth throughout the country. This human desire to just feel safe in our homes and to feel protected from the ills of poor governance that has been handed down to us by this and past governments is something that we share with you. As we watched as our institutions withered away without any proper policy to move the country forward, poor leadership, and the absence of accountability with little or no management principles and a measure of performance from our leaders, past and present, the NTA took a stance. If not us, then who? If not now, when? No one else is doing it. No one offered any viable solutions. Only failed manifestos and broken promises which have now led us to this moment. A moment where a national security minister downplays automatic gunfire outside a primary school. A moment where this very minister uses his vast inexperience to divine that the problem of violent crime and murder lies with legal firearms. Of the almost 600 murders in 2022, it is alleged that in a minuscule 4 instances, legal firearms may have been implicated. And this minister's response is that legal firearms is the problem. Think about that. Reflect also on other moments where the rule of law is being suborned by our attorney generals. Whether it's committing perjury in international courts or entering into agreements with king's councils of dubious legal provenance to persecute and prosecute any opposing voice. These supposed legal luminaries have let themselves and this great nation down through their atrocious conduct and decisions. That level of obfuscation, incompetence, mismanagement, dereliction of duty, lack of accountability and transparency has no place in Central, no place in South, no place in Trinidad, and no place in Tobago. Friends and fellow citizens, the NTA has as its ethos a simple model with 4 key pillars easy for all to digest and to further develop all offshoot paradigms. The LAMP model. We bring to this nation all that has been absent for the last 7 years: leadership, accountability, management, and measurement of performance. These are the key things lacking within our institutions today. Quite perhaps, yet no one has been able to bring that to the table in a tangible fashion up until now. With the National Transformation Alliance, we will improve the lives of our citizens. The LAMP model is one that can work now. Bring back safety and well-being into the lives of the people. These principles are embodied by all members of the NTA, and especially personified by our political leader, Gary Griffith. Serious crime cannot be overstated as a social cancer that literally threatens our very existence. What is the present response? Well, one response is given by our narcoleptic National Security Minister whenever he can be roused from slumber. And I repeat, legal guns are the problem, and more cameras to watch crime will solve it. More cameras, but no supporting legislation to allow video recordings from designated police cameras to be admissible in courts. Another weak response comes from the unimaginative Acting Commissioner of Police, whose solution is to do more joint patrols. Something that has been going on since Operation Anaconda. And those of you who are old enough here, remember those operations with the same menial outcomes. There will be challenges, but critical thinking has to start sometime. It won't start with those in charge, however. Imagine the acting commissioner himself in an interview with The Guardian is quoted as saying, and I quote, "The executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Police is very concerned with the number of murders we are having within the streets and communities. A lot of them who are making an effort is despondent at this time, as they see the murders in some divisions doubled and even tripled," unquote. So you tell me, if the executive is despondent, where do they look for their leadership? Leadership that is non-existent. Where is the strategy for crime in the country? Probably in the same place where the minister and the acting commissioner of police get their ideas from. The National Transformation Alliance assures all of you that we will reduce crime and facilitate the growth and expansion of thriving, law-abiding communities in all areas of Trinidad and Tobago. We will ensure that proper leaders are placed in correct portfolios. We are an inclusive party. We do not and will not discriminate because of previous party affiliations. We seek to place the right people, properly trained and educated, with social and moral values to serve the people. And we will start by supporting and trusting the process without political interference, that a competent and credible Commissioner of Police will be appointed to lead the force, regaining public confidence and setting back policies in place that have either been withdrawn or dismantled because of political ignorance. In Central alone, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service 2020 to 2022 crime statistics show an average of 206 burglaries and break-ins and 268 robberies in this area. Vehicle theft went up to 100 in 2022 from 67 in 2021, and amount an average of 57 murders in the Central Zone. My friends, violent crime remains a major concern for the general population and the NTA. We have had several steps in place to counter crime and criminality, and they all followed the LAMP model mentioned earlier, and they worked. Unfortunately, this present administration believes that it was the worst mistake it ever made. I will only mention a few, and we all present here today are suffering because of political mischief. Gary Griffith, as former commissioner, had taken up these initiatives. The address of organized crime and corruption, the support and management of the police service to ensure that there are proper levels of policing and hold it accountable for effective delivery. The upgrade of infrastructure and amenities to increase the morale and productivity of our police service in the communities. The increase in the use of community policing. This was and is important for policing, community building, and crime prevention, and was executed in such a way that the police presence in the community became an important deterrent to crime. Another well-known fact, one of the precursors to crime is unemployment. And unemployment in Trinidad and Tobago has escalated in the last 5 years, increasing exponentially from 2015 to 2020. Thousands of citizens have lost their jobs at all levels of society. This has resulted in families being unable to provide for their loved ones. Indebtedness and homelessness have devastated the lives of many. Alongside these troubling adversities that the present administration is bent on taxing the public out of home and livelihood, worsening the effect on our society. My fellow citizens, a reduced standard of living and suffering seems to be the new normal. More and more people are falling into the range of the poverty line as gas prices continuously increase along with taxes and services. As a result, the comfortable life we once lived has been removed and taken away. We can no longer afford basic items when we go to the supermarket, far less limited luxury items. In the dairy section of the supermarkets, we are now seeing a stick of butter being cut in half to be sold. And in the meat sections, chicken neck, back and feet, and now chicken breastbone are sold at the staples. Comfortable means of living with affordable basic items are no longer existence. This is now true for the entire population in both rural and urban communities. Those who depended solely on agriculture or the provision of skilled labor to provide for their families are facing the brunt of the burden. The reality that now faces us is that those that once hired persons to do general cleaning on their properties are now doing it themselves. And contractors are seeking ways to reduce their labor costs with everyone, be it low, middle, or upper class, watching their dollar value at every turn. the society is at its most vulnerable with this continued and unabated inflation. My friends, poverty is increasing. We know that the high food bill, poorly managed social welfare system, poor infrastructure, drainage, roadways, recreation, damaged education system, and inadequate utilities, water, electricity, provisions all provided by this government are substandard and direct contributors responsible for the hardships we face and directly linked to the growing poverty in the country. It is clear that the present government cannot manage our resources. Their profound lack of accountability, poor performance, and mismanagement of our country must be stopped. You, more than many, know the communities and business, the challenges, the potential, and the issues you believe must be managed. And the government of Trinidad and Tobago has to provide the policy framework, infrastructure, and the political impetus to drive progress. But only in government can we, the NTA, do so. This is why we don't come to you with mindless promises of grandeur and delusion. We come to you with a Connect Caravan to let you know who we are. And we are partnering with you, the people, the citizenry, to bring the brightest minds and critical thinkers together, regardless of party politics, to formulate the best policies for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We want you to engage with us, be part of our policy development teams, bring your ideas and concerns. This is about nation building and patriotism. Ask your questions at the end of the night and join our teams. Security and safety for our citizenry, anti-corruption, food security, development in agriculture and manufacturing, all coupled with sustainability and looking into the green and blue economies are at the forefront of the NTA transformation agenda. These policy developments will not only create hundreds of jobs for the people of Trinidad and Tobago, but also transform the landscape of the country. Transform it with us. Yes, we agree that COVID-19 has disrupted our lives, causing massive difficulties to health, wellness, and the economy. The coronavirus pandemic has resulted in lockdown measures that have left communities and small businesses like those that line the streets of our cities with limited resources and no help from the present government. The result has been the closure of many businesses across central and surrounding communities. And with no businesses, people lose jobs and are unable to provide for their families. With your support, we can change and develop Trinidad and Tobago and contribute to a sustainable growth of our country. As I close, I would like to reiterate that change can only come from you. Without you, we will continue with increasing crime, increasing poverty, poor infrastructure, inadequate water supplies, flooded homes, violence in our schools, and fear in our hearts. While the majority of you here today would have supported the two major parties, you know neither of them can take us forward. Let us be the beacon of change and better life. Together we can revive the economy, insulate our homes from crime, create better communities, provide better services, and create a better quality of life and a safe haven to come home to. I thank you.
Crime, crime, crime. is a word that you hear in every citizen of this country mouth. Is there anybody in this hall today who has never been affected by crime? Could show your hands. Is there anybody here who have no fear in going home? Have anybody here who don't worry about anything when it comes to crime? Anybody doing anything with a family member? Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday made it 1 year since I looked down a barrel, a Glock 17 9mm barrel. Right? A vehicle was stolen from me, negotiating with a criminal to either take me or take my daughter from me. Right? So I'm a victim of crime. When I joined the NTA not only because I'm fed up of the recycled politicians or the recycled politics. I joined the NTA because we have a leader who curbed crime as a Minister of National Security, who curbed crime as a former cop, and imagine what he can do as the Prime Minister of this country. And I speak about none other than Mr. Gary Griffith. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a little surprise for you tonight. Without introduction, I would like to bring to the stage, and I will let you guys know that this is your first live performance, is it? So you're going to witness the first live performance. And before I go that, I just got a missing person report here. We have a missing person report. Someone has reported that the Prime Minister has been missing since last week. If anybody know his whereabouts, please call me. Thank you very much. We will tomorrow drive down. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to the stage, singing for you, No Rowley, I bring you our Director of Communication, Mr. Errol Fabian himself.
That's right. Thank you, Insaf. Just right. Oh, gosh. Good evening, everybody. That didn't sound like everybody. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. It's really good to be here. He telling all it is a surprise. It was a surprise for me too, okay? But I'm sure we can do this. Now, the track I have has my voice on it. And I'm one, I don't like to hear that at all, but we're doing this, okay? You know, there's just a simple little song that I wrote, you know, because I was looking forward to a very peaceful Christmas. I don't like row. I can't deal with row. I had this Chinese man living in my community named Mr. Lee. Oh, good. That fella love row. So I did this song just for that man. There we go. Peaceful Christmas, a quiet Christmas. I don't know wrong, nobody know how. I don't know wrong. A Chinese man named Lee, living in the community, live very ignorant. He truculent and arrogant. He argumentative, a sense of privilege. He make it hard to live in we own village. Every single day, some way, somehow, despite himself in wrong. So for this Christmas, we don't want no rowdy, spare me rowdy. This Christmas, we don't want no rowdy, just stay away from me. Yeah, take it away. All they want row for the Christmas. Cricket. Take a one. He's a fella, you don't take man, you don't take. Yes. Lee like a Rottweiler. He could be a lot milder. Listen to me, pal. Try to stop the bacchanal. Every day and night, Lee looking for fight. With all he might, the fella always right. Some say he not too bright. He giving them a fright. He angry like a cow. But Lee always in row. For the Christmas, we don't want no rowdy. no rowdy, spare me rowdy. This Christmas, we don't want no rowdy. Just stay away from we. Give me a little social distance now. You want a social distance? You want a big distance. Like if we start in our distance. He do really be sick. He gets better very quick. Once he clear it with baby and oral. He never get home ever since he born. He remember the ladies, but no play babies. The friends he hanging with, all of them did with. But I'll tell you now, the man always been wrong. So this Christmas, we don't want no rowdy, scary rowdy. This Christmas, we don't want no rowdy, just stay away from me. But listen, man, I hear he riding out the top. I hear some people talking. And it's not just for Christmas. It's going to be going for a long time. Thank you. Just right. Thank you very, very much. All you wouldn't believe the amount of problems I get in my life from the time I released that song. You know, some people actually think that I'm singing about the Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. How they could end up there? Truculent, arrogant, ignorant. That is not the Prime Minister. Always in a row. That is not the Prime Minister. How they could even think something like that? It hurt my heart when they come and say I was singing about, oh, we love the ladies and all, you know. No, that can't be. So, my friends, thank you very much. It was great performing my little song. We're trying to. Here's Insaf. God bless you all. And I hope for this Christmas, you don't have no row.
Let's hear it for Errol Fabian. You want no Rowley. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker has served our country in many different ways. He has served in the military, in the Defense Force. He has served as Minister of National Security. He has served as the Commissioner of Police. And he is going to serve as the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I bring to the stage the one and the only Captain Gary Griffith.
I'm so hard to hear today first. My grandma didn't even believe in me. I kept going though. All I can say is I told you. Jury at the bank down in the box. You should have never doubted me. I'ma work to my last breath. I'ma hustle to my last breath. Yeah, you should have never doubted me. The pain and the struggle followed me. But daddy never.
Of the National Transformation Alliance, other members, supporters, well-wishers, persons who are curious observers, and to the tens upon tens of thousands of persons who are listening and viewing right now on the live stream. Thank you for taking your time, your precious time, to be here and to listen to what we have to say. On most occasions, I will speak about a number of different things, but today it's just one word, and it will basically summarize everything that I will say in the few minutes that I'm here. One word, and that is leadership. Leadership. What we have seen in this country over the last few months has been void in leadership, absence in leadership. You know, strange enough, and I could even refer to looking at the World Cup football. My son and I go through constant debate as to who's the greatest footballer in the world right now between Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi. So he supports Messi. And there's no, to try to debate about who is the better footballer, it is difficult. It is just like trying to say who's the better person in his field. Gary Griffith, because he's very versed in national security and law enforcement. Keith Rowley, he's very qualified to massage rocks and stones. And everybody has their specialty. So you can't measure it. You can't measure Ronaldo and Messi. What you could measure is leadership. And not to attack any of the Messi supporters here, I'm sure there are many. I am speaking about looking at the quality of an individual based on what they have been trained to do is not leadership. Leadership is having the ability that when your team is down, you can stand up, you can help them, you can build them, you can motivate them. And that's why I always compare Ronaldo to Messi, chalk and cheese. You would have seen what happened today. Penalty, he'll throw it away. His head is always down when the team is losing. When they're ahead, his head is up and he's bold and showing himself. And it reminds me so much of Keith Rowley. And I'm not trying to compare Rowley to Messi in no form or fashion. But I'm trying to show that true leadership is one that when things are going hard, when things are rough, when you're under pressure, that is when you need to stand up. Keith Rowley goes absent. I think he has this machine, remember the Starship Enterprise, where Scotty beams him up and he disappears. Every time the country needs leadership, he disappears. The majority of the government, they disappear, void of leadership. They do not know what to say, they do not know what to do, they go absent. And leadership is not one. There's a perception, and again, because listening to my comrade here, Commander Dindial. Dindial, you trained in UK, in Dartmouth? Where did you train? In Dartmouth? Mexico, right. And the training we have in the military, as military officers, when I trained in the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, the main thing they put about leadership is to serve. And sometimes we have politicians that they believe leadership, and if you listen to this Prime Minister, his words will always be, I have instructed, I have summoned, I have directed, I have ordered. That is what they feel leadership is about. They feel leadership is trying to put yourself in this type of dictatorial position that you can direct, order, condemn, criticize. That is not leadership. Leadership is at times humility, being there to build persons. And it goes back to the Messi Ronaldo thing. Trying to understand that when your team is down, that is when they need you. We don't need you for your skill, that is there. We don't need you for your talent based on how you were trained, that is there. We need to know that there's an individual who is a team player and can build. Keith Rowley has shown, undoubtedly, he lacks that leadership skill. He shows his substance as a leader when he's in a political meeting, and he will have those persons that if he says anything, they're going to shake their head in acknowledgement. And then that is when he gets confidence. And that is when, you know, the little ornament on the dashboard of the car, his head starts bubbling when he starts to get excited. That is not leadership. Leadership is being able to build people, try to get people to be the best that they can be. And that is what we are here, the National Transformation Alliance. Our job is to build, not to destroy, to try to unite, not to divide, to try to be constructive, not to be destructive. And if you see an individual where all you see is hate, all you see is animosity, all you see is a man totally out of control, you cannot have that as a leadership to build this country. We are in a situation where we have seen lack of leadership, and what little leadership there is, we have seen incompetence in that aspect of leadership. Recently, from the floods, landslides, the nationwide blackout, the Paria disaster, traffic management or lack of, crime, communication to the public or lack of. And every single aspect where leadership is required, they have gone absent, they've gone silent. And you could go one after the other. From the floods that we have seen recently, you know, usually people will say, well, sometimes it is an act of God, and if you have too much water and there's not enough place for the water to be drained, it can happen. And yes, we have seen that in developed countries, we've seen that all over the world. But what is more important is what would the state be able to do to try to minimize the damage done, and what action is taken after. And that is where it is the difference between professionalism and incompetence will come in. If you recall situations from Carnival 2020, how we were able to put proper structures in place to ensure that it was the safest carnival ever. If you go back to in 2018, when there was a massive flooding and the country was divided in two, I never thought the country could ever be divided more than politicians, but that day in 2018, the country was really divided. It was split in two, just right here, somewhere right here around Chaguanas and the environs. And what we had to do is the leadership that was required. I was up to my waist in water for several hours, and that is the leadership that we wanted. You can't see the Minister of National Security, Minister Sleepy, he's always asleep on the job. You can't see the Prime Minister, you can't see Mr. B+, Jacob. You can't see these individuals because they are absent, they do not know what to do, they do not know how to organize, how to build, how to motivate, how to have structures, how to have operational plans, how to have timelines, and that is what we do. What I have done is when I decided to say get back into politics, I wanted to make sure that we have the best team available, because sometimes politicians and political leaders, they need weak people around them to make themselves feel relevant, to make themselves know that what I say is what will happen. And that is definitely not the way I am. My understanding of a team player is to ensure as a leader, you can get the best minds available, regardless of the fact that that person can challenge you, because I want to be challenged. I did it in the military, I did it as a national security advisor, I did it as a minister of national security, I did it as commissioner of police. I hate yes people. I want people that can challenge me and can tell me this is wrong. Keith Rowley's cabinet cannot do that. 7 members of parliament told me that if they had their way, they would want me back as commissioner of police because their constituents is who put them there and the constituents are being affected. But they're afraid to tell Keith Rowley that. That is not the type of cabinet that I will want. That is not the type of individuals that I will want. I want people that will have the ability to tell me you are wrong, you are going in the wrong direction. Because if you do not do that, what you are going to get is something known as democratic dictatorship, sorry. That democratic dictatorship is what we have in our constitution, where our constitution was established in such a way to manipulate democracy. It ensures that one man and one man alone can handpick virtually the Chief Justice, the President of the country, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, the Commissioner of Police, the Chief of Defense Staff, the head of the SSA, all the state board members. That is, in any country, that is dictatorship. And we have set our constitution just for this. So our concept is to make sure that we can change this. So when they had the flood in 2018, we looked at the situation and we said, and I analyzed it. I said, listen, there's no water on one side of the road. Split it in two, drop cones, put police officers, put lights, and have the northbound and southbound on one lane. Not one person in the hierarchy of national security or anyone in the government thought about it, and people were stranded and they spent several hours. We have seen this for so long. It seems that sometimes if you get in a position of leadership, you feel that you are too senior. You do not want to dirty your suit or your khaki pants because you are now an executive officer in the police service. No, you must be prepared, and that is also leadership. And I will keep using that word leadership tonight. Leadership is one where you are always prepared to do exactly what you will have anyone that you delegate to do. You must never be prepared to say that I am not going to do that, but I could delegate someone to do that. Be prepared to do the exact thing that you will tell someone to do, which is what I did. As Commissioner of Police, I will take a bullet for a stranger in this country. I will be prepared to go out there on the fields and be able to stand side by side with the most junior constable and let him know that I am there for you. That is the type of leadership we need. That is what it is the NT is going to provide. We are going to be there. It wasn't by accident that when I gave out that number, 482 Gary, that I wanted people to be texting me all 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and my wife going crazy hearing this phone ringing. But that is what we need. We need someone who is prepared to work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and be prepared to do everything to make this a better country. Those are the type of the persons that we want. Those are individuals we need that are willing to not lead, but serve. And all of the things that we have seen, every single thing that we did, in 2018, as I said, pertaining to the flood, during the earthquake, we put so many things in place that could have made it easier for so many citizens in this country who have lost virtually everything over the last few days, and a total absence of leadership. In 1990, I was the youngest officer that served this country during the attempted coup. I just returned from my training in England. And when we saw the problems, when the commission of inquiry took place, the main thing, the main point that was put about in that the commission of inquiry into the attempted coup was the importance of coordination and communication. The one main point they put, it was to state that we need a national operations center. As the National Security Advisor, I decided to do my research, and United Kingdom has something known as COBRA, the Cabinet Operation Briefing Room. So I cheated. I piggybacked on what I saw in UK. I looked at Ecuador, Brazil, looked at everything to understand how can we prevent a repeat of 1990? How can we be prepared to deal with any natural or man-made disaster, because we lack coordination, we lack communication. And by setting up that National Operations Center, we saw the results. In 2014, when I was Minister of National Security, it was the lowest number of serious crime in 25 years, because the National Operations Center was a strategic part to that. When I became Commissioner of Police, because Minister Dillon, he decided to shut down that system of the NOC and handed it over to the SSA, as stupid as it was. So the PNM government decided to shut down and dismantle the one thing that the Commission of Inquiry recommended to prevent a repeat of 1990. It gives the impression that they would like to see that to happen again. The one thing that was done to ensure we can be prepared for natural and man-made disasters. And that coordinating center ensured that we can be able to monitor what is happening, making sure that all the different arms of the protective services will be in one area. And then you have the different ministries, the Ministry of Work, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Works and Transport, National Security, all of them working together, and the Ministry of Communication. We have a Minister of Communication with all of these things. He has not said a word. The man spends more time on social media typing LOL on a Rhoda Barrett page than trying to tell the country what needs to be done and how to communicate to the country for them to understand how to deal with a natural or man-made disaster. And that is the point I'm trying to say, that we had something so good that would have assisted this country. And now we have seen it recently with the nationwide blackout. Because they shut down that NOC, the Minister of Energy, Keith's blue-eye boy, his little mini-me, and mini-me decides that, I'm not calling Stuart Young name, no. So mini-me decides now to say that a nationwide blackout, he decided to put TNTech as the point organization to communicate to the public. And all TNTech did for the 10 plus hours that the country did not know what was going on is that you'll get back lights in a few hours. It shows ignorance at the highest level, lack of organization, lack of management. And it goes on and on. The Paria disaster was the same thing. Had there been a national operations center, what you had, and you're seeing it there with previous political leader of the COP, Prakash Ramadar. I'm very proud of him of how he dealt with it. And he exposed it. He exposed the shortcomings because one hand did not know what the other was doing. So when they had this situation, nobody knew what to do. There was lack of coordination, lack of information being fed. Because of lack of information, it meant that nobody knew what to do. So they stood in their shoes and they wondered. And because of that, persons lost their lives. A national operations center would have ensured that all the information was fed in real time, and then we'll be able to have the information to then, bam, come with an operational plan to get in there and get it done. And that is what we need. We need doers. We don't need talkers. We need people that will go out there and get the job done. They decided to shut down the National Operations Center, and that was one of the main reasons why the Paria disaster took place, because one hand just did not know what the other was doing. Again, lack of leadership. So I have stated, we have seen the absence of a Prime Minister, a Minister of National Security sleeping on the job, the Commissioner of Police, and then with all of this, with all of the floods and everything taking place in the country, the Acting Commissioner of Police says, well, we'll increase patrols. If West Indies lose a test match, Jacob will say to increase patrols. If Argentina will lose a World Cup game, increase patrols. It is the old-time type of policing. They do not know what to do, void of ideas, void of leadership. So you need to say, look, I'm doing something. What increased patrols has to do, what does that have to do with a situation of a natural or man-made disaster? You would have seen what we did. I immediately ignited an alert state, got everybody on deck, making sure you had a proper communication system on the 999, making sure the 482 Gary, the online reporting, the app reporting, all of these things, by the way, he has dismantled. And because of that, the country now could not contact the police now could not assist. The most basic thing for police in a situation like this is traffic management. And traffic management meant that if you had the operational command center and the commissioner's command center, which has also been dismantled, if not watered down, that would have ensured we pinpoint every time there's traffic somewhere, and the police will immediately dispatch officers to that specific location to assist in reducing the number of hours persons were stranded. And you'd have seen it. Every time there's traffic, we will have police officers because we were monitoring the country. We had it on lockdown. We had 90 police vehicles in the 9 different divisions, and in 10 vehicles in each division. Think of it. Think of this area. Think of this area where you have 10 vehicles 24 hours a day strategically placed with GPS tracking, monitoring the area of responsibility, ensuring that you can have an immediate response. All of these things played a part to crime reduction, and I'll come to that shortly. But all of that is why it worked. And why did it work? Again, going back to what the previous speakers have stated, that LAMP model: leadership, accountability, good management, and measurement of performance. People will ask, well, that would have probably worked in the police service, but it would not work to govern a country. Well, let me tell you this. When I took over the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, there was 14% confidence in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. When I left, it was 55%. Now I think it's back down to less than 10%. The reason at 14%, it was one of the lowest in confidence and trust that the public had in any institution in the public service. When I left, it was the highest. And the reason for that is because we use those principles to ensure proper accountability, measure the performance of each and every police officer, make sure that there was good management in every station, every division, every region, and above all, ensuring proper leadership. You cannot have leadership when it is someone has the audacity to state that after going on 600 murders for the year, you decide to give yourself a B+. But you know the reason why he is doing that is because he feels and knows that he has the support of some of others in wearing political pants. And I go to why it is that I applied for the position of Commissioner of Police, because I've never stated it before. Trinidad and Tobago, I've been there. I've served my country in different ways. I've spent 17 years in the military. I've been a National Security Advisor. I've been Minister of National Security. I've been Commissioner of Police. I have served my tour of duty. I don't need the stress. I don't need the complication. What I was doing is to ensure that I am given the opportunity to serve my country. And that is why I applied for the position as Commissioner of Police in 2018. And I did it to the best of my ability. I'm not perfect. No one is. But at least I tried. And the reason why I have reapplied for this position, and people are saying, well, how could you apply for a position and still be a political leader of a party? So let me clarify. In the military, when we make decisions, we think 3 steps ahead. That is why it is, when people say, well, gosh, you're going to put a military officer as a possible political leader. I think it's about 31 presidents of the United States out of the 43, 44 odd had military service. And this is not in any way to glorify the military, but the military has a lot of things of leadership, service to country, and those things kind of, it helps try to make that person someone who can serve a country and serve well. So when looking at 3 steps ahead, I was fully aware that there is not a snowball chance in heck that I will ever be appointed as Commissioner of Police. So my application for Commissioner of Police was specifically for one thing and one thing only: to show to the country the arrogance of one individual. Because had I not applied, he would have then stated, well, I didn't reject him, he didn't apply. But I am going to apply, and I did apply. And if and when I come first, let him for once be a man and say that he rejects me in Parliament. Don't send dog whistle messages to the Police Service Commission. Don't go and treat the President's house as if it is a post office and you want to have meetings there to try to influence people. Be a man for once and go in Parliament. Or is it that you're afraid that your 22 members of Parliament, a few of them will decide to say, I am doing what is right for the country and you are not going to dictate? Because if that happens, that means a government can very well collapse. Because now it shows that the Prime Minister does not have control of his members of Parliament. So I am pushing that envelope. And let me tell you something, when it comes to, well, would he come first? Usually I don't do these things. But let me just tell you, in 2018, when we had the assessments for Commissioner of Police, I knew nothing about policing. And the results had, I want to compare myself with Mr. B+. Management skill for Gary Griffith, 4.4, to Mr. B+ Jacob, 4.15. Work integrity for Gary Griffith, 4.55. To Mr. Jacob, 4.15. Panel interview, Gary Griffith, 40.69. Jacob, 32.27. Written case study, Gary Griffith, 8.50. Jacob, 7.5. Media role play, Gary Griffith, 11.81. Jacob, 9.9. Role fit, Gary Griffith, 12. Jacob, 7.50. Total score, Gary Griffith, 81.94. Jacob, 65.54. Keith Rowley, Police Service Commission, your name, man, put Jacob in front of him. Show to the country, once and for all, that we are now going to have independent institutions that are being pressured and manipulated. And if the Police Service Commission, they do what is required, because in 2021, when it is I had the experience as police commissioner, when we had those same exams, Gary Griffith, 85%, 91, 84, and 85, 94.8%. The closest senior police officer, 50, 50, 59, 60, 77%. Defeated them by over 17%. Are you going to tell me that no, this time around, that I won't come first? So Police Service Commission, you want to let us see if you're independent. And if you are independent, and you do, because I could write with my left hand those exams and still top that exam. But let Keith Rowley decide to reject me. And it will show once and for all to the country that this individual does not care about the country. And that is the reason why I applied. So I didn't apply because I want to work. I didn't apply because I need a job. I've been there, I've done that. I have proven myself, and I serve my country well, to the point that 89% of the country in the official polls that were done stated that they wanted me to return as Commissioner of Police. And three things alone should be the criteria to select a Commissioner of Police, because in any non-banana republic, that is what is done. It is done based on the crime statistics. 2, it is the public trust and confidence that the public will have of the police service under your tenure. And 3, the public trust and confidence that the public will have of you as the individual. So let us compare. In my last year, from August 2020 to August 2021, it was the highest reduction in every violent crime in 25 years in Trinidad and Tobago. We went to 342 murders, 250 murders reduced. In Jacob's last year, 586. It was the highest number of murders in the history of anyone in any given year, in any period in this country. And this man gives himself a B+. And the reason when I'm saying this is that we need to accept the fact that if and when a decision is made, and one man could say, I do not care what the country needs, I do not care what the country wants, I do not care what the majority of the country demands, I do not care who is the best person for the job, I do not care who is the person that is best suited to reduce crime, I do not care who came first in the exams, it shows that person is full of hate and is totally out of control. Because he will now be saying to himself, I do not care what is best for the country. I do not care if blood flows. I know that I am making this decision. And I challenge the 21 members of parliament, the 7 of you all who shoot to me and telling me that you wish that you could bring me back as Commissioner of Police. Be a human being that remember that oath you put on that Bible. You swore an oath to your God, to your country, and to the people. You did not swear an oath to Keith Rowley. Make the right decision. And I can tell you, that is why Keith Rowley is afraid to send that to Parliament. Because if 2 or 3 members of Parliament do the right thing, do the honorable thing, the government would collapse. I am now going to also mention about the concerns that we have about abuse of state resources. We intend to ensure that what we are seeing right now in our constitution, the government has the capability to infringe on your own privacy, your constitutional rights. We have a situation where an acting commissioner of police is now going ahead and giving a directive to intercept the phones of political opponents of the PNM. This cannot be accepted. You cannot be, this is what happened in 2010, which is why we formed the Interception of Communication Act. Not knowing that, and forgetting that if the Prime Minister appoints the Commissioner of Police, he can very well influence or pressure the Commissioner of Police to do what is required. So we have a situation now where our financial institutions are also being used to try, not the banks, but financial institutions in the states that are supposed to be involved in intelligence gathering and investigations, digging up into the bank accounts of anyone who is seen as a political opponent of the government. This cannot continue. You cannot be using state resources to target political opponents of the government. I have done a lot. and I could do much more. But I am one individual. And that's why I continue to ask for all of you all, come forward and make that decision to see if that we can turn this country around. I have seen hypocrisy at the highest level with this government. And this is not to knock the PNM. The PNM is a political party that has done a lot for this country, just as the UNC have done. It is not the political party, it is the people. And we need to send a signal to these individuals that you've been weighed, you've been measured, and you've been found wanting. They have played their hand, they have failed miserably. We have reached a situation now where people are wondering, do we really have a space for a third party? Do we have space to bring a new political party? Well, let me tell you something. It started in 1981. 1981, it started with the ONR, 91,000 votes. 10 years later, in 1991, it moved to the NAR, 127,000 votes. 16 years later, in 2007, it moved to the Congress of the People, 147,000 votes. Now we've gone 15 years later. What happens now? Now it's known as the NTA. 200,000, most probably, even more. Because the good thing is that younger people are saying to themselves before, you see, like 10, 20, 30 years ago, this is a PNM house, this is a UNC house, you need to know how to vote. The younger persons, because of technology, they are now understanding and looking at what is happening and telling daddy and mommy, when it is that you vote blindly, because you have blind loyalty for a political party, that is not going to help us. That is not going to see about us. That is not going to give us a better way to live. We need to understand that you have to make a decision of the best people, and that is what we are doing with the NTA. We want the best minds available, and if and when we get into government, our job is not to state who was the person who was an NTA supporter that is going to be part in the serving of this country. Because that is what happens. So when the PNM, for example, wins, only the 300,000 who voted for the PNM or pulling the chairs for Keith Rowley would be considered as a member of parliament or a member of a state board. So you would have now lost over 2/3 of that ability of individuals who could have contributed. And that cannot be right. We do not care whether you're PNM, UNC, ABC, or XYZ. We want to ensure we have the best minds available to make this a great country. And by taking away the politics, it is going to help. Because the political parties have deliberately ensured division by race. Because that is how they succeed. They need to solidify their base. You need to understand that that certainly does not help you. We intend to do all that we can. And again, it cannot work when you have a situation of, for example, you have a female police constable reporting to the diplomatic center to speak to certain senior politicians. And I challenge the Prime Minister, tell me that no junior police constable at WPC has been meeting certain senior politicians in your government and briefing you about certain investigations. This can't be right. This is, again, goes back to the concern when I speak about known as democratic dictatorship. It has to change. I listened to Caravan earlier, and he spoke about sport. We intend to ensure that sport would be a core curricular activity, not extracurricular. Sport can turn around a country and by helping develop so many young persons, because sport can do so much to develop them, not just to be a good sportsman, but to help them be a better man or woman, because it helps you in the character traits such as leadership, uniformity, punctuality, teamwork, getting the job done. And all of that, that is why we intend to ensure that sport becomes a core curricular activity. It is not going to come by lip service. In the launch of the World Cup, the audacity of the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM and Foreign Affairs, Amory Brown, telling the other members of the diplomatic corps that Trinidad and Tobago would be in the next World Cup in 2026. Amory is not a tender. You don't pay for it. It takes hard work. And this government did not do a thing, did not lift a finger to assist our national football team in the World Cup 2018. Not a thing. They did not provide anything for them. But you automatically make a stupid comment to believe that, oh, well, let me put the lip service to do as if Trinidad and Tobago could qualify. We can do so much, but our sportsmen have been discarded for decades, because we saw sport as an extracurricular activity. We intend to make it a core curriculum. My final point I just want to, because I don't want to stay too long, has to do with this great word called firearms. One of the speakers mentioned it earlier. So let me just get to it. Again, going back to Mr. Jacob and Fitzgerald Hines, Minister Sleepy, every single thing they speak about is legal firearms. So let me cut to the chase. It wasn't 4 firearms, by the way, that were involved in the 600 murders, because what they are doing is also trying to bring in situations where police officers or persons in the security officers may have used their weapon. In my watch, in those 3 years, not one of legal firearm issued was used to commit a violent crime, not one. So when Minister Sleepy decides to speak about 108, let him get his facts, and I challenge him to show it. But what has happened is that when I issued legal firearms, it's because I realized that law-abiding citizens, you have a right to defend yourself if the state is unable to defend and protect you. And in that, as I said, not one of these weapons was used to commit a violent crime, to use to commit a murder, or was lost or stolen, because we had a comprehensive system to ensure the right persons got it. 4,000 firearms were issued. That is 0.3% of the population, 0.3%. And of that 4,000, 2,000 plus were given to police officers, fire officers, prison officers, soldiers, sailors, police officers who, because of our stupid system, when they work at the end of the day, they have to take their firearm and return it to the station and leave themselves abandoned that they now could be targeted by criminal elements for they and their family. So I issued 2,000 firearms for these police officers, past and present, prison officers who were being killed. And you have a problem with that? But it's okay to send a message, Gary, Commissioner, I have these 10 firearms from our partners. Commissioner, I have a partner in Tobago I want to give off a firearm dealership license for. The hypocrisy of these individuals and the audacity, because you did not want police officers to get their private firearms to be able to protect themselves and their loved ones. You didn't want the small businessman to get a firearm to protect himself. You didn't want the farmer, the hunter, the individuals who probably needed a firearm when they're involved to protect themselves from predial larceny. You have the audacity to say that that is a problem. And then going back to what I spoke about, there are 13,000 crimes that take place annually, roughly. And out of those, just about 4 or 5 would have been by legal firearms. But the legal firearms, again, over 50 lives have been saved because of the firearms that I issued to these individuals to protect their loved ones, to protect their assets. And you have now issued over 70 police officers 24/7 to go on a witch hunt in the hope that you can find something. So you put 70 police officers to investigate legal firearms and not one police officer solely assigned to investigate and to extract illegal firearms, which has been the result of over 99% of all murders by firearms in this country every year for the last 5 years. And you give yourself a B+. It is unbelievable. The illegal firearms have been the problem. And I drafted a border protection program to the Prime Minister to put an end to it, because all of the illegal firearms enter through our legitimate port of entry, or the majority, I should say. So when it is that the police, they do their job, and over 800 firearms can be seized annually, so after 10 years you can seize about 8,000. In one night, a container could leave the port with 10,000 illegal firearms and get out there, because at least 7 containers go missing, disappear annually. And instead of us trying to come up with a plan, which is leadership again, we have the acting commissioner of police, as incompetent as he is, having the audacity now to point fingers and say, why only don't get rid of the head of customs? That is what we have reached to. They are imploding. So he is now trying to target other heads of the protective services and blame them for the situation in this country. That is not leadership. That is not teamwork. That is not serving. And that is the point I'm trying to make. Just before I close, my point is to explain to Trinidad and Tobago, we are here to build a team. We are here not here to point fingers. The Prime Minister, the Minister of National Insecurity, and the Acting Commissioner of Police, they have failed. They have failed miserably. The one thing I would expect and ask the Prime Minister to do is that the Minister of National Security, he needs to be removed immediately. The man does not have a clue. Fitzgerald Hines has made Eddie Dillon look like James Bond. Jacob has made Stephen Williams look like Elliot Ness. These individuals have caused the problems in this country. This can turn around, however. I am not here as a Grim Reaper. I am definitely not Scrooge. What I am here is to give you hope and to use that word in the NTA of believe. Believe that we can turn around this country. When it is that, again, when I took over as Commissioner of Police, crime was the number one concern. In 3 years, it became the number 4 behind health, education, and the economy. It is now back to number 1. The point being is we can do this, but it cannot happen if you have a government that will refuse to listen, that will think that your biggest enemy in the state are your political opponents rather than those persons who kill, rape, and kidnap. That is where your focus should be. But trying to harass the police service to influence them to put their focus on going after political opponents, it means that you are now diverting the resources and attention to deal with the criminal elements. I don't see a criminal element as being someone with a different party card. I see the criminal element as those who try to deprive you of your fundamental right of safety and security. And that is what I intend to do. We intend to target who the enemy is. And I ask this country, please believe that this can turn around. Just before I close, I don't want this government to fail. I would like them to succeed. I'm a patriot, and I have offered my service to advise them. But because of arrogance, because of hate, because of bitterness, because of a man totally out of control, that is not going to happen. So if they do not want to take our advice, they do not want to get our support, the only way that we can turn around this country is that they need to be removed, and removed immediately in a democratic manner. I ask Trinidad and Tobago, please believe that we can make this a better country. Believe that we can improve. Believe that this country can be united. Believe that Trinidad and Tobago can become the country that we want it to be by us working together as one team. On behalf of the NTA, I ask you all, please believe.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's our political leader and the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Captain Gary Griffith. Before we move on to the next part of the program, I just want to read on a headline on the CNC3 news today. Girl 14 amongst 5 arrested on gun ammo charges in Edinburgh 500. Anybody ever investigate where these guns coming from? I will leave that right there. I just want to mention in here present today, we have Mrs. Nicole Dyer Griffith. We have in our presence Director of Legal, Ms. Jones Birds. We have Mr. Timothy Timal, our General Secretary, all members of the governance team. And the reason why I mention these names, if you look at the speakers and the names that I mentioned, these people were handpicked to form the governance team of the National Transformation Alliance, right? Everybody has a particular skill, has a particular portfolio. Myself, I am architectural design engineering, we have security, we have legal, we have environmental, we have a doctor. And we don't have engineer leading the finance team. We don't have a geologist as prime minister. We don't have none of those things. We have people to fill the positions and criteria to form a proper government to bring back this country. So believe that NTA is the way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you to the next part of the program, and this part of the program belongs to you, the people of Central. I would like to invite our political leader back on stage, and I would like to invite anybody in the crowd who have anything to say or any questions to ask. Feel free. Just raise your hand or stand, and I encourage this, please. This is your time. We would like to hear from you. Anybody? Come on, that's one we need. That's it. That's it. The mic. Can you just go across to the mic if you don't mind? Do we have a wireless?
Hi, good night, everyone.
Good night, sir. Can we get your name, please?
My name is Kamraj Singh. I'm from Kanupia, Hasara, Kanupia.
Thank you.
I'd just like to ask Mr. Gary Griffith a simple question. Now, he spoke about leadership. And there are many other aspects, but I will not get involved in the other aspects. There's just one question I'd like to ask, concerned about leadership to the country, as we were talking about the Prime Minister. First, I'd like to ask him this question. When you become a little boy, and your parents taught you from small and grown up to become truthful and honest and not be dishonest. In this country, we have a leadership who is being dishonest and not truthful. When we had a general election within 5 years, and when the PNM has won the election in 5 years, and Mr. Rowley had become the Prime Minister of this country, during his course of debate, he has spoke certain things, but I will not get into certain things he had mentioned, and he lied to this country as a leader. Since that day, we all in this country, since he become a leader and he has lied to this country and been dishonest to this country, we're not going to accept him as any prime minister anymore. He has to resign and he has to come out of this country. We're going to vote him out, and we are going to do that in this National Transformation Alliance. Because he has lied to this entire country, the population of this country, he has lied. Totally lied. When he was speaking at the platform in Port of Spain, he has lied. Abomination to this country, to the people of the citizens of this country. Today, when Mr. Gary was speaking concerning about leadership, he's supposed to have good leadership for this country and the population of this country, where the citizens of this country need the help. Look at the disasters going to be in this country. What will happen if people die? And we have to turn to Almighty God for help. Look how much things have been done in this country. What are we to say about it? Today I want Mr. Gary to explain something here to me concerning about leadership and trust, honesty and not dishonesty, and not lying as a leader and a prime minister of this country. Thank you very much.
I cannot promise you the world. One thing I could promise you is that what you see is what you get. And on 2 occasions, I've stood up because of you all, the citizens of this country. In 2014, I stood up because I remember I swore an oath and I was not going to lie. So it goes right back to what you just spoke about, sir. Certain persons, they wanted me to lie. And I had a choice. I could lie and keep my work, or be fired. And I decided to be fired. I prefer to be fired than to lie. 2018, same thing. I was Commissioner of Police up until 2021. In 2021, I was the blue-eye boy for Keith Rowley. In fact, Keith Rowley told his Attorney General, change the law immediately to ensure that Gary Griffith will not leave. Because I had my 3-year tour duty. It was like Vietnam. I was good. I was leaving. The man rushed there, told Faris, I want you to make sure that Gary Griffith decides to stay. Change the law. He changed the law because as the acting commissioner of police must be someone who is a serving police commissioner. So it goes back to the point about lie. You hear lie? So you say that I was your biggest mistake, but you're running Faris Alwari's office to change the law in April last year to ensure that I stayed as acting commissioner of police. How could I be your biggest mistake, but in April last year you tell your Attorney General change the laws because I cannot lose Gary Griffith? How could I be your biggest mistake when it is that you went to cabinet and say if you could get 10 Gary Griffiths, you could change the country? So it again shows, Keith Rowley, did you lie? It's for you to answer that. And therein, again, you go back to the hypocrisy of the individual. When Keith Rowley tried to fool the country with the things with firearm, because he got the Stanley John, and Stanley John, boy, you have made a fool of yourself, because you claimed something was the biggest well-oiled criminal industry, and after 2 years, not one person has been arrested for corruption in this. So you have made a total fool of yourself. And then after you bring 3 persons to do an audit, and they do an audit, And out of sheer ignorance, they didn't understand that if you do an audit for an organization, you need to speak to the person who was in charge because of the excitement to try to bust my throat. And it fell flat. And now I've taken them to court, and they're moonwalking like Michael Jackson. And then in comparison, so you run now like a little boy, a schoolboy, as you mentioned, to say, well, look, we have a report here from an individual who they hired and paid them millions of dollars to probably put what you wanted them to put, which were all lies, by the way, because it has been proven. And then after, you use that as the excuse that only the PNM, the blind PNM fanatic will buy into. But then when Special Branch submits a report about one of your senior ministers, you say, well, that report is just intelligence, so I can't use it and act it. It shows the hypocrisy of the individual. And let me add one thing before I step off on this. As I mentioned, I have several members of parliament in the PNM that know me well. They believe in me. I'll find out whether it is true or not. But it has just been brought to my attention that the government has virtually collapsed. There's an emergency meeting that has just taken place, and there is a massive cabinet reshuffle taking place as we speak. So let us see if that was rumor or not. Let us see if the members of parliament are close to me or not. So let's see if what's going to happen tomorrow. If what has been brought to my attention, inclusive of Minister Sleepy and others, but the sad thing about it is that at least, you know, when you have a government that will decide to rotate, you cannot shuffle 52 jokers. It's the same jokers you're going to reshuffle in the pack. So by moving one to the other, we have a minister of sport who has boasted that she never kicked a lime in her life. We have a minister of communication who has never communicated to the country on anything. We have a minister of national security who said he's not responsible for your safety and security. We have a minister of energy who has a greater security detail than the Chief Justice, and I'm not calling Stuart Young's name or his children. That is what we have in this country, and Jacob is allowing that. You allow an individual who is a minister of energy to have more security than the Chief Justice, and when he was the minister of national security, he did not have one death threat. I had 40, 33 on myself and 7 on my wife and children. 40 death threats. And this B+ man have the audacity to remove my security. You know why? Because you have to sing. You have to sing. Not sing like Errol, but sing for supper. So you remove my security where I had 40 death threats because of the things that I did to affect criminal elements. But you keep me security for his children and everything else. Inclusive of, let me tell you, when it is you talk about political interference, in the Western Division, we had limited vehicles. There was one police vehicle assigned to guard this man's house, 24/7. And that vehicle should have been used to protect and secure and patrol all of the citizens of the Western Peninsula. That is what we talk about democratic dictatorship, where a government could direct and influence a commissioner of police. Put my security, leave the security detail there. Don't touch Stuart Young's security detail because that's my mini-me. But you could remove Gary Griffith one. But Gary Griffith, the type of individual I was, when I was Minister of National Security, I decided to put full security for Keith Rowley as the leader of the opposition, which was never done before outside of political season. Because I understood that if this man is the leader of the opposition, it means that he can be targeted. And Jacob, because of his total B+ attitude, right? He's Mr. B+. It's the only, anytime you judge yourself and grade yourself, it shows how clueless you are. Because you have to try to self-praise yourself because of you know what a failure you have been. And you now decide to keep the security for Stuart Young, the Minister of Energy. This is what we have to go through. So Trinidad and Tobago, let us see about this reshuffle. But as I said, the reshuffle is not going to change anything. It means that the Prime Minister, if this is true, it means that the Prime Minister has now confirmed that the persons he is reshuffling, they are clueless, they have failed, they have destroyed this country. And by trying to reshuffle jokers one into another, it is not going to help. The only way that can help this country is for each and every one of them to be removed in a democratic process. Thank you.
Don't go too far because we have Mrs. Griffith.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. One for Kevin. Where's Kevin? One for Dr. Khan and one for Mr. Griffith. Kevin, you spoke of the youth NTA and about the vibrancy of the organization may you advise if young persons who listening out there would like to become part of the Youth NTA, how can they become part of the organization? That's for you. Dr. Khan, you made mention of a number of flood and planning mitigation plans that were undertaken and shelved. May you advise how many of these plans were actually undertaken and shelved, and of the veracity of any of these plans that can be immediately put into action and put into place? Mr. Griffith, you spoke of looking for and identifying the best and the brightest in terms of persons who had something to offer when the NTA were to enter into the corridors of governance. May you advise how can those persons who are listening on the outside there and who may have ideas and policy positions they may wish to contribute and they would like to do so now, how can they do so? And for those who would like to contribute, how can they do so without opening themselves? Because you made mention of a number of areas where you and your family, myself included, are under attack by this state, which many of you may not be aware of, are under full attack by this state. So for the regular citizen on the outside there like us, listening in, how can we contribute in a safe way without putting ourselves out there, you know, and opening ourselves to what exists as a governance structure in Trinidad and Tobago? Thank you.
Sure, thank you for that question, Nicole. So for anybody who has kids, family, relatives, anybody who wishes to have their children join the youth portion or the youth arm of the National Transformation Alliance, you all can contact us from the 428 Gary number. You could send a WhatsApp to that number as well, and this would be anybody under the age of 35 welcome to join. You could send us a message, you could call, preferably a WhatsApp so we could return the call. And from there on out, we'll make arrangements to meet one-on-one, listen to their views, listen to their concerns, and we will take things further from there and to get them instrumentally involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dyer Griffith, for putting me on the spot. By my reckoning, and I have been in and out of the Sustainable Planning Development Mechanism for some time, there are 7 reports that were done starting around 1982 by Thames Water International and ending with the 2017 Huskerding report that talks about alleviation of flooding in Trinidad and Tobago. They've been funded by the IDB, the World Bank, UNDP, and by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. All of them point to 3 basic things. You have to stop the water from running off very fast out of the mountains, into the floodplains, and down into the sea. So there are 3 proposals. For Caparo, which is still underwater now, there was a detention dam plan for Mamaral, and that was shelved. For the Aranguez area, which fortunately didn't flood this time around, there was a detention plan planned for Upper Santa Cruz, which would trap the water and let it trickle into the Santa Cruz River coming down. And for Mafiking in Mayaro, there was also another retention pond. A retention pond is different to a detention pond, to also regulate the rapid flow of water out of the Nariva area, South Oropochira, into Mafiking area. And for Mayaro, Manzanilla area, there was one proposal to deal with the volume of water coming out of the Nariva swamp through a detention pond system, which would have been in the Nariva swamp itself, so that that rapid volume of flow that mashed up the road would have been slowed down appreciably. So to answer your question in a nutshell, there are options. These options require money, but they are already at the stage of technical evaluations ready for implementation.
Okay, so I would like to introduce our our General Secretary, Mr. Tim Timal, to address you guys for a few minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So how can you register? The simplest way to register is to WhatsApp 482-4279. You're WhatsApping your full name, your address, and obviously your phone number, and we'll do the rest, we'll process the rest. If you looked at the flyer that we sent out, the PDF flyer as well, you will see a couple of links. So there's a link where we put the directions, where there is Waze or Google Forms, and then we had another link where you can press and go to a Google form, and you could do your own registration. We also have another link which you could donate as well through WePay. We urge you to facilitate that as well, and follow our social media pages. NTA is the way. Captain Gary Griffith on Instagram. We have former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith on Facebook, and we have I Support Gary Griffith and the NTA on Facebook, as well as Gigi's personal pages, Gary Griffith and Gary Griffith Jr. Any one of them you can message, but the easiest way is to just send a WhatsApp message to 482-4279 with your pertinent information, and we will do the rest.
Thank you. And just before we close, to answer Mrs. Nicole Dyer Griffith's question, by the way, you have a real good-looking husband. The comment that she made, Trinidad and Tobago is in its darkest hour, and the darkest hour is that whereas years ago, anyone could attend a political meeting, anyone can go to a political meeting and voice their political support, because the Patrick Manning administration, the Bazio Pandey administration, the Kamala Prasad Bisesa administration, the A.N.R. Robinson administration, the George Chambers administration, the Eric Williams administration, those administrations, those governments never targeted political opponents to the point that we are seeing now. We now have every political meeting, a member of the special branch will be here watching, taking names, writing notes, and sending it to the government. All of this would come to an end when we get in government. You cannot have the police being used in any form and fashion to be involved in political maneuvering to assist the government. And this is wrong. And again, going back to the things that we have seen. In 2009, the then government, they were involved in intercepting the phones of persons. As I said, we formed IOCA. We now have an acting commissioner of police, who's intercepting phones of political opponents. And the reason being is because he can use the word called intelligence. It means that any prime minister, for example, can direct the acting commissioner of police to say, I place you there, I want you to investigate and intercept the phone of Kamala Prasad Bisesa, Rudy Munilal, anyone. And then say, well, let us just say intelligence has revealed that they are drug dealers. That cannot be right. Our constitution is sacred. It is to ensure your protection. And this is why I stated that our goal in government is to get in government to diminish the powers of a government. Because when you have a government that can manipulate a process to ensure that someone's phones can be intercepted, that they can use financial institutions to dig up into your accounts in the hope that they can find something. Remember, just before I close, remember, the perception is that Gary Griffith was involved in major corruption. They didn't find a thing. They lied. So going back to your point, they are liars. They lied. 2 years, nothing was found. So in order to change to now, well, maybe illegal guns causing people to be killed. They're so dotish. Every legal firearm, when it is given to the person, the barrels are checked because it is tested. The ballistic testing is done. And not one legal firearm was used in any one of those murders that cannot be accounted for unsolved. Every single one. The one that was involved in a domestic situation between the husband and the wife, and that was in March this year, which, by the way, I was not Commissioner of Police, because had I been there, There were systems I put in place in the gender-based violence unit, the online reporting, the app reporting, the 482 Gary, where that lady may have very well contacted me, and immediately I would have seized the firearm. So you, Mr. Jacob, must account as to why those things are not in place, because I ensure that many persons, their firearms would be seized if there was a blink of a possibility that it may cause a problem. So that is the things that we are talking about here, that the concern that Mrs. Griffith spoke about, it is real. I am not here to try to tell you it is your right to support. You need to be very careful. This is a dictatorial government. Their job is to try to attack your political opponents at all costs. When a government could tell a commissioner of police, take £4 million, take 45 million TT dollars, and you are to use this and directly use this to go after investigation for political opponents. But when I asked them for 90,000 TT, simply to say that after we finished the AV drilling investigation, it made for disturbing reading, taking a quote from Mr. Wobblehead. And then when it is that I got this, I asked to get an engineer to verify what we had in that reading was linked so that we can then move ahead. I couldn't get 90,000 because it might affect them. But you give them 45 million to go after political opponents. So for the PNM fanatics, any day, anytime, especially those in the media who feel that every single thing the PNM do will be right, like the Darian Marshalls and come, your name, man, bring me on your show. Let us talk mano a mano. Don't just be bad talking people and praising Keith Rowley because that is how you have it set. Let us be honest with ourselves. So for those people, I am asking you all, we can change. The government is on the verge of collapse. But you need to be very careful because this is a very, very, very government that is involved in revenge, hatred, bitterness, and they are totally out of control. So all you need to do, you could be silent partners. The time will come when you will make your biggest, the biggest hit of all, which is when you stain your finger and you will be sending them home. And that, I assure, is the day when Trinidad and Tobago will turn around. And that is when it is we will need to believe and understand that Trinidad and Tobago would be the country that we can be in. But you know, just ask you to please, there's no need for, there are many, those who have stepped up and have been prepared because they know what the PNM is going to do. They're going to victimize them, they're going to target them because that's the way they are. Not the PNM, but the certain hierarchy of the PNM. So you need to be prepared. If you're willing to stand up and fight with us, come out and be an overt supporter because we do need that support. But what we need more than anything else is the covert support. The hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of those people who are saying, I'm not a PNM till I'm dead. I'm not born at UNC and I'm going dead at UNC. I believe that this party, this group, this team can cause positive change in Trinidad and Tobago. And you can provide that support by, Tim, the information he just sent to you, and just give us that support if and when required. Other than that, those who want to come forward, you please do so. But again, as I said, we are selecting the best minds available, the best team available to make Trinidad and Tobago a country that we can actually feel proud about. Thank you.
Political leader, we have 3 questions here from a member of the audience. 1, what are your plans to increase the country's revenue? You want to go read all? Or? Yeah, let's read first one. Okay.
This is a time that any politician will come on the platform and speak about diversification and all of that. No, this is where the difference lies. Because you're speaking about, yes, we intend to diversify, we intend to put focus on agriculture. You cannot make a decision like that unless you do cost-benefit analysis to ascertain whether it will be of value to Trinidad and Tobago. This is why someone spoke about the 5 stadia being built. We love to build, we love to construct, and we cannot maintain. So what we intend to do is, again, make sure we have a powerful team of the best minds in finance. Not a man like Colin Imbert and the Minister of Finance. Listen, Trinidad and Tobago, when I was the Commissioner of Police, the man did not know the difference in a vote between goods and services and salaries. So when I said that I did not get a cent every 6 months of the fiscal year, the man said, but look, Gary Griffith, look, he got 800 million. The jokey man, Minimi, number 2, did not understand that you cannot pay goods and services through salaries. That is the incompetence we have of putting square pegs in round holes. So what we would be doing is getting a proper team of powerful persons, regardless of your political affiliation, to make sure we have a very powerful fiscal policy, which we will be revealing to the country. But a simple example of business model is that the best way for you to maximize your productivity is to diminish wasted expense. We lose over $5 billion per annum in corruption just by state boards. And you know why? Because the state boards are appointed by the politicians. And over 80% of the persons in state boards have absolutely no knowledge in the board that they're appointed to. But because they were able to pull out the chair for the prime minister, or be able to give him a little check there on the side, or be able to wave a flag, you get a state board position. So you put square pegs in wrong holes to deal with our state board, so it means that we lose productivity, mismanagement, and also corruption, because everyone in the state board is affiliated to the same political party. We intend to put 20% of all persons in each state board being assigned and selected from the opposition. This would ensure checks and balances, and this immediately is going to diminish billions on corruption and wastage. And by doing that, we can utilize those billions of dollars in the things that the country needs.
The second question is, with the exception of fixing crime, how can we make our country a tourist destination?
Well, again, likewise, going back to the same model I just spoke about, strange enough, the person who is probably the best versed in Trinidad and Tobago, I will say, is one of our deputy political leaders, Lauren Pouchette. She has done so much dealing with tourism and looking at what can be done to improve tourism in Trinidad and Tobago. Again, the same way, and I will always use the model of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, because that model had 10,000 persons that were not respected. Their morale was lifted, their motivation was lifted. They became known as Trinidad and Tobago's finest. They believed in themselves. The country believed in them. You know why? Because I put a lot of resources and emphasis in customer service training and getting them to believe that they are the best. We intend to do the same thing for tourism. We have a situation here where we do not put any emphasis on that. And even in that customer service training, there's always that report that the service that you get in Trinidad and Tobago is not the highest standard, because we believe that how we operate is not indicative of the standard for tourism worldwide. So again, that puts a lot of emphasis on that. But tourism, just like sport, just like certain ministries, is seen as a minor ministry, or by the way, or by the side. And we can make these ministries something that can be profitable and productive for Trinidad and Tobago, because you also have sport tourism. One of the persons in our party, in our governance team, he spoke about the Ministry of Health. We believe that every single thing with the Ministry of Health is an expenditure, but you can turn the Ministry of Health into something that you can get from health tourism as well, by getting, like in Venezuela, for example, getting certain countries where you have the focus on a specific field, and it will cause persons to come to Trinidad and Tobago, and we now get financial gain, not just seeing the Ministry of Health as a ministry that we are going to lose $5 billion every year and get nothing in return. So there's health tourism, there's sport tourism. People feel tourism is just going on a beach. We don't have the best beaches, but we have the capability of turning around many of our ministries in some aspect of tourism. And that's what we speak about, is the manpower strength and the individuals in Trinidad and Tobago that can turn tourism, as I said, not just about being on a beach and having a tan or carnival. We believe everything in our tourism is carnival. Sport tourism, health tourism, there's so much we can do in that word tourism. And thankfully, we have one of the best persons versed in the country in tourism, in our deputy political leader, Lauren Pouchette, and she's driving that as well. And you'll hear more about that in our policy in the near future.
Our third question, I should say, Guyana has been in talks to make travel to Canada visa-free. How can our country qualify for similar talks?
Well, let me tell you how bad it was. When I was Minister of National Security, you all would not be aware that we were going to have visas imposed on us by the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom said it is a done deal. It cannot be changed. I said we cannot. If Trinidad and Tobago has a visa imposed on us into Europe, it is going to hurt us heavily, business-wise, persons trying to get to their education. They gave me 10 points that we had to put heavily, and they said it was impossible because there were 10 countries that were going to be blacklisted. That was up until from February 1st, 2014 to January 1st, 2015. I was able to deal with every single one, and you would have seen it in the airport still, put in K9, put in proper training in our officers, in the police service and customs, getting proper technology required. a number of things, and it saved us from having a visa imposed from the United Kingdom. And the reason I'm saying that is that the same way I was able to ensure that we were not blacklisted and have a visa imposed in the United Kingdom, I will do all that is required to have all the different arms of those institutions that believe that Trinidad and Tobago, maybe we have to second guess on them. I will do what is required because it speaks about micromanagement. It speaks about me going to the UK and pleading with them, show me the list, let me know what is to be done. And that again shows you need to step out of the box. So depending on that, I honestly can't give the promise, but what we can do is look at it and ascertain what can be done. What are the requirements that you need from my country for you to reconsider not having a visa? That is what I did for the United Kingdom. That saved each and every one of the citizens in this country not having to get a visa when they went to the United Kingdom. And I will promise you that I will do the same for every other country that will have similar concerns for Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
So we are very close to close, but I cannot deny this question. Nikolai, can you go to the mic?
So I have a question directed to Mr. Kevin. So you spoke about with the education system that we need a lot of change because Trinidad and Tobago has a backwards education system. And as a student, I can agree. We take a long time to actually modernize ourselves and actually get with the program and evolve. Now, you also spoke about the fact that we neglect our sports when we can actually take more time to invest into it so that we can actually be recognized as a country for our sports. And I'd like to add even our performing arts, our music, our dance. But I want to know, I like the LAMP model. It's a very good model in theory. So I'd like to know, how do you plan to implement that model into practice so that we can accomplish the task the education system so desperately needs?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. So the LAMP model, as we heard, the first thing you hear when you hear LAMP model is leadership, and you hear accountability, measurement of performance, management. These are all very important principles when you take into account sports, education, health, and you could apply this model to almost everything straight across the board. When you're talking about sports in Trinidad and Tobago, it is a situation where we simply don't utilize all the resources that we have. We have all the things that we need. We have the athletes that are performing, that are outperforming other people in the rest of the other. We are competing against athletes in the United States of America. When you look at the football teams, the cricket teams, the West Indies, we are performing on par with these people. And then we have one of the best batsmen in the world, Brian Lara, one of the best golfers in the world in almost every single category. What we really require is support. Support from the people that are in a position of leadership. And quite frankly, that is what we are not getting. And that is what we are hoping to improve in that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saran. So we have come to the end of our program tonight, and let me just, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, don't leave too fast. You all have an opportunity to take a photo with our political leader or any member of the governance team that you wish, all right, at the end of the program here. So anyone have anything to say, any questions before I go? No? We good? All right. So I would like to thank all the speakers here tonight who took the time, came here. They were very informative. And so also, I would like to thank Signature Hall, Mr. Adams Hussein, Double R Recreation Club, Mr. Sheldon, Mr. Narish Mangal, Mr. Krishna Ramdani, Mr. Pradeep Gasaram. Oh, sorry, Kasaram. I would like to thank each and every one of you who took the time and the effort to come out here today. I know the conditions are really tough out there, and you all made it here today. Today it would have never happened without you guys being here. Give yourself a big round of applause, please. To the officers who's here tonight, I want to thank you guys for being here and ensuring our security, the DJ, the camera photographer, Mr. Rohan. He came here tonight just like that, a good friend of mine I know for a while, and he just came out and said, Insaf, I'm going to take photos for you guys. I would like to give him a round of applause as well. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the end of our program, I would like to again thank you guys for being here. Next year, we're going to start again. We're going to have more meetings. I already have 3 meetings already planned for the beginning of next year in the east, which will be St. Joseph, Valencia, and Aruca. Look out for the flyers. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on WhatsApp. Please try every effort to join our team. Mr. Timal has given you the information. For the younger ones, I love the question that Nikolai had presented. We have potential here for the youths. We have a lot of space within our party. So please, people, bring the youths forward, have them join. And for now, I would like to say good night to each and every one of you. Please reach home safe and be safe.
There's our coming.